Pawtucket's mayor is in the house tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Is there going to be a day when Don Grebien doesn't have like this much on his plate all the time? I wonder if Pawtucket will ever have a moment of bliss, because they're constantly on the grind, and the city is, you know, I still think with the chance of amazing potential, but it's not like they get a lot of help these days. We're going to talk to the mayor about that and more, and his thoughts on the overall culture here in the state, especially with that evergreen contract signature. Great to have you in. Thanks very much for tuning in. But the top story around here is this, right? This is what had everybody. I had heard about this last week, didn't say anything because I didn't want to burst anybody's bubble or get it wrong, but Cooley was out with me either. He talked to the AD at Michigan somewhere along the line, and it was real. He was down to the last couple. Now, I'm not exactly sure if he pulled out or they went with Juwan Howard, but this headline follows, and that was this morning. And I think everyone just kind of feels pretty good about that, and obviously Cooley does. He tweeted. All right, so there's an affirmation that it can that the mission at Providence College continues. Let me tell you, if he left, it'd be a dominating story. Now it's just one of those. Whew. I saw one guy on Twitter tweet to him simply this: "Don't ever do that again." Pretty good. All right. In Washington, they're creeping toward impeachment. Here's a headline from today. What that accountability means, I don't know. Are they going to try to civilly arrest the former chief counsel, White House counsel to the president? Here's what the chairman said when that counsel didn't show up on Trump's orders not to.
Mr. McGahn has a legal obligation to be here for this scheduled appearance. If he does not immediately correct his mistake, this committee will have no choice but to enforce the subpoena against him. Mr. McGahn did not appear today because the president prevented it.
And the Republicans call it a circus, and here we go. There is now more momentum on the Democratic side to begin impeachment process, to open an impeachment hearing. That doesn't mean they're going to vote to impeach. Leading the charge on that is our own local Congressman David Cicilline, who has been a talking head all throughout the land on this in the last 24 hours. And we'll try to check in with him as well on both here and the radio ASAP. You know, it's almost like, you know what, to get off the pot. You know that phrase? Because you're just dangling around with this whole thing isn't helping them at all. And the Trump administration certainly is not going to help, period. On the issues of the other thing, Ethics Commission. Sorry, I almost missed this. Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee paid a $250 fine, or agreed to today, on his mistaken reporting of his first Asian trip and a couple of others. Of course, he went on a second Asian trip and I think reported it. The guy wasn't trying to hide anything. Sloppy paperwork, and somebody really ought to pay the price in his office for this. I don't think he has to have a press conference announcing it, but I would hope that he brings some accountability to the table. He walked all over himself on this and handled it as clumsily as I've seen a public official in a long time. However, I know McKee to be an earnest/honest public official, and this 56 and a 55 cost him $250, and a lesson learned about doing your paperwork. In the meantime, Valerie Lawson, an educator in East Providence, in that same Ethics Commission meeting today, had an inquiry opened on her in terms of her status as a member of the NEA executive team and some of the challenges on that when she's voting for bills that benefit not only her, but her professional organization. So that'll be an interesting ethics case. We'll dig into that as we have time to do. All right, on the issues for tonight, here's a headline. All the mayors were trying to get the speaker, the governor, to see this thing clearly. They did not. We have a headline here that reflects the decision on the governor to sign the evergreen bill, as it's known, and the overtime bill for firefighters. She's convinced herself it was a good thing to do.
Like most things I do, people don't love it all, but I thought it was a fair compromise.
Was it?
It made our jobs much more difficult, or that much more difficult, from a leveraging standpoint. From Pawtucket's perspective, and I always worry about Pawtucket first, we consistently don't go back and challenge our unions or take anything away. We always have a good faith conversation. What this did for other communities is it took that tool off the table, if you will, and lost some of the leverage. After speaking with the hearing from the governor and hearing from the speaker, I understand where they're coming from. They felt that some of the communities were aggressive in the past, and they had constituents they had to listen to. But at the end of the day, the mayors stuck together and town managers. It was a tool they took away from us.
Stuck together and got it stuck to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We lost on this one, on that, and the fire overtime. And again, it doesn't apply to Pawtucket. You know, today, because we have a 42-hour work week, so we're not in that. But in the perspective of leverage down the line, if we wanted to change, now they've mandated the overtime after 42, as opposed to 56. Some will say 56 isn't fair. Maybe it's somewhere in between. We still have ongoing contract negotiations with ours. We'll work those things out so it doesn't apply to us. But it does take that tool out of the toolbox and that leverage away. It does.
The one thing that I found to be really interesting, by the way, welcome.
And thanks for having me.
Good to see you. And you were on that Asian trip, weren't you?
Yes, yes.
How was it? Fun?
Great trip, really good experience. You know, I know people are going to believe what they want to believe.
Not paid for by the taxpayers.
Not at all, not at all. And and some of it was paid for. I've paid for myself because I wanted to make sure we're trying to do business with these people. Just an abundance of caution, to be clear. Mayor Dioso and I thought that we might have a conflict down the line, not now, so we wanted to take care of that. Reporting, it doesn't report till April, so we've got plenty of time. You know, the lieutenant governor felt badly about it. Clearly, you're absolutely right. It was a paperwork issue. You know, it's funny, we're talking about.
I never hid the trip. In fact, what was ironic about it, on his first Asian trip, he was coming back trying to get attention for it.
Right, and because of that trip, right, and people don't see this, he was advocating for the Blackstone Valley in Pawtucket, and because of his ask, they donated another 6 boats, dragon boats, for our Dragon Boat Festival, which we've been doing for 20 years. Yeah. So it's not like it's been hidden, but you're right, it's the perception. And
well, while we're on it, give me 30 seconds. What'd you learn? Anything?
You know, clearly they are much more developed. There's much more money out there. I give this example. We met with the 3rd highest ranking individual in Hong Kong. Is responsible for finance, IT, and economic commerce. He has the department has a $90 billion budget. There's money there. There's money to invest. We've met with some people who are interested in doing hotels. Everybody's a little concerned because of the new relationships nationally, from a trading perspective with the U.S. and China and Japan. So everybody's concerned, but we've got some valuable relationships, and we're hoping to capitalize on them.
Find any dangling baseball teams you could encourage to come here or anything like that?
No, they have baseball in common. Taiwan was great. We got to enjoy the American Institute of Technology of Taiwan, rather. It was their 40th year anniversary. It's like the embassy. Great experience. You know, we're 40 years with the United States celebrating. So it was a great experience, and hopefully we're able to capitalize on the relationships.
So thanks for that excerpt. Yeah. But tell me about this evergreen thing, this continuing contract legislation. The numbers aside, we're a home rule state.
Yep.
And we've crept now another direction toward the General Assembly telling you and your counterparts how to run your cities. Worried about that trend?
Yeah, absolutely. As a league, unfortunately I wasn't at the last meeting. I know there was some conversation that we have another league meeting in June.
League of Cities and Towns.
League of Cities and Towns, sorry, yes, yeah. Where we all come together. There'll be discussion on that. Absolutely, that's a concern that's coming in, is how far do they go? What's the impact? You know, at this point here, it's law. What are our options, right? How do we handle that? But from us, you know, for me specifically, again, it has no bearing today. There's no cost to the residents today, but there is a tool that they've taken.
Well, it reminds me of the Fram oil filter commercial, pay me now or pay me later.
Absolutely.
You know, well, believe me, they'll be paying later. All right, when we come back, there's some specific things that are a challenge for the the good mayor of Pawtucket, trying to keep the hospital emergency room business alive, and a whole lot more. Stay with us.
We have there is a lot of primary care clinics, specialty offices. The hospital's closed, broom swept. And if people remember, that hospital required about $40 to $50 million of upgrades. It just, and when you're losing $3 million a month, it's hard to do that. Now, as the mayor has asked about turning the property, I think that becomes a different regulatory problem with the Attorney General, because these are charitable assets that simply cannot be transferred, such as that. That said, we're working, we've engaged in developers. Some developers have come along with some solutions to the property.
That's James Finale, the CEO of Care New England, immersed in this battle with Lifespan over Care New England's merger with Partners in Boston. You have your own agenda here, and that is to save emergency room service for the city of Pawtucket. Since the shutdown of Memorial Hospital, which you saw right there, which is part of the Care New England system and been the financial drag on Care New England, you're getting a lot of constituent pushback on what's happening with emergency services.
So there's a constituent pushback. There's a need in the community. You know, we see it in the hospitals.
He doesn't dispute that, by the way.
No, absolutely. I think that even the Department of Health, and that's the interesting piece of this, the Department of Health is part of the Closure Act, and they hired a consultant, Jonathan Snow Incorporated, JSI is what it's called, and Care New England was obligated to pay for it. And they're doing an analysis on the system right now and the impacts to the system. But if you're in the hospital, if you talk to anybody, I mean, I've had, I say the pleasure, but it's not a pleasure, of being in the hospital a couple of times with my mom and my father-in-law, and they're outside in the hallway. It's not what service should be, right? They're doing everything, let me be clear, you know, whether it's at Miriam, or it's at Rhode Island, they're professionals. They're doing everything they can. But what we did as a state is we just pushed so much into it. You know, the balloon factor, it's just ready to explode. So there's no doubt that emergency service is needed. What really everybody gets bogged down to is the licensing issue and what really constitutes a emergency room. So if you take today's model and today's licensing, it requires more than 50 beds, right, which is a hospital. It's not what we need. We need what they call, and it's really, you know, degrading to me, but it is what they call it. They get mad at me, but it's a treat and transport, right? We're humans, right? We should be having this perfect health care. How do we get them in? There are certain things that triage could happen, but isn't happening under an urgent care license, the lower level. So we need that change.
Well, obviously you're becoming kind of a medical expert in all of this, trying to get this thing done. They're not going to stand in your way. They want to discharge this. They want to discharge this property and, you know, kind of hand off to another party a responsibility to do the business that you would like to see done. Correct?
So they have two people. We're all at the table now, where we haven't been, you know, in years. Their main focus was to figure out how they survive, and they cut the bleeding, and they've done that. They still have a ways to go, and the whole merger thing brings another piece of it. But at this point here, we have collectively worked together, and we have potentially three, I'll say, developers and financiers that may take over the hospital, the old hospital building, and try to give us that service. We're still working out all
Do
those
what
kinks.
with the hospital building, though?
So there are different options. It depends, because there is still as you heard Dr. Finale, there's still the piece of what the Attorney General and what the trust will allow some of that money to be used. So in the perfect world, you'd want to have very close to, if not the exact type of usage in that field. Then the money could be used for that. So I don't think you're going to see a 200-room hospital, but you might see emergency service. You might see some rehab. You might see there's talk of a potential of having a veterans facility there, you know, helping the. So there's different ideas out there.
Is the building sound enough for renovation? Is it something that developers look at and say, "Ooh, this is potential"? Or they look at it and say, "Oh, this is a dog"?
Well, we had one developer that came in and said that they wanted to turn it into apartments. Not the highest and best use, not in the model, because Care New England wants to keep a piece of it. So when you're looking at what's in the best interest, you really want to have that synergy. The other individuals are looking through it. They've asked, and they'll be doing a 30-day due diligence which started maybe 5 days ago, 7 days ago. I don't want to lie to you, Dan. And they're doing their due diligence. So we've done a walkthrough. As Doctor said, it's empty. Everything's gone. They've sold or scrapped or whatever. There's all the equipment. They've taken that value out of that. But now this group is really going to come in and do the assessment. So we'll have a better idea if they can make it work.
Let me ask you this. Does the Memorial Hospital story resonate? On what level does the Memorial Hospital story resonate compared to Hasbro and the Paw Sox? Because it feels like those are your big three.
Three,
right?
absolutely. No, big three. So each one is different.
I'm not talking
right?
about your focus. I'm talking about how people are responding and what they're concerned about.
So the Paw Sox was out, when you talked about the Paw Sox was identity. Okay?
Right.
Hospital is a need in the community, right? So people, I think, they're more impacted by not having that. They're more inconvenienced, right? We see it on a daily basis with our rescues, right? I have to put a fourth rescue on, right? There's a...
And bothered by the emptiness of the building and the lack of activity?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think it's more about the services, right? And what is it going to become? There's a safety aspect of it. It's a vacant building. What are those fire and safety issues? So I think people look at that. And when you're talking about Hasbro, it's an iconic global mecca company, right, that started in Pawtucket, and it's about the jobs. People still in our community are living it.
So when we come back, we'll dig into those two things a little bit further. Stay with us.
My job as the chief executive of the state, it is my job to make sure they stay in Rhode Island. And the mayor, of course, is focused on keeping them in Pawtucket. I think what's in the best interest of the mayor is to make the positive case for Pawtucket, not necessarily to have press conferences criticizing the company. Like, Hasbro's a great company, they're a great corporate citizen, and we want to keep them in Rhode Island. We had a news conference being critical of the company, and that isn't what we want to be doing right now. What we want to be saying is, this is a great company with a long history. Rhode Island can fulfill their business needs. We have great talent, great location, great place to live. You started here, you belong here, stay here. We're going to partner with you. I mean, businesses want a partner in government. They don't want an adversary. And so, that's what I'm trying to say to all businesses, by the way, big and small. We're going to partner with you and help you to be successful.
I don't know how you kept your patience on that one.
You know me, it's behind us, right? It is what it is.
I do know you, and I know what kind of a tightrope you got to walk. And you're not infallible, and you're not a perfect elected officials, but I know your gut, and I also see you as one of the more forthright and honest guys around here. I remember vividly what you did the day after the election day. You actually talked to me about your strategy, which was to keep Hasbro out of the politics of the mayoral election. You had a press conference to call on the governor and the state house to engage you fresh off the Paw Sox loss. Yep. It was a cry for support and cooperation, help perhaps. You never disparaged Hasbro in any way, shape, or form. You went out of your way to buoy them. Where in hell did she come up with that?
Don't know, Dan. Her and I have had some brief exchanges. And
since?
Yeah, since then. So we've had.
Did you ask for clarification?
We've had those honest conversations.
Did you ask for an apology?
I would never put anybody in that position, Dan.
Why not?
Because it's about moving forward.
You're the mayor of Pawtucket, damn it.
I know, and to move forward.
I mean, I'm saying that in a.
I got it.
Way.
No, you know me, right? And I appreciate all those. This is really about moving the city forward, right? Hasbro is an important part of Pawtucket, and I get the governor's perspective on Rhode Island, but the whole issue was around the incentives that they might be putting together to relocate a Hasbro out of Pawtucket, which can't happen. It shouldn't happen. Since then, we have a couple of qualified developers and investors who are making their own private pitches to Hasbro to show, besides the ones that we've already have done, to show the viability of Pawtucket. At this point here, it really becomes what Hasbro wants. And they are really being, close-lipped, and I respect that coming from private business, and we want them here. I'll do everything I can to engage them. I'll never do anything to frustrate them, because it's about keeping them here.
You're in a really tough spot, Mayor, because for some reason it seems that Hasbro has this disposition that they don't want their company name being used by public officials unless it fits in their wheelhouse, and all you were doing was saying, hey, this is important to us, help. She sets you up for failure. She already created an environment where she can point back to you as the problem. Now, I think she's smart enough to know that that foot in the bucket that she did there, she ain't going to get away with that. But she'll try.
Dan, you know, and the people that I've had conversations...
And that's the politics that you're
right,
dealing with.
Right, that's the politics, it is. But I've had conversations with Hasbro. They in no way feel that way. I have
no one there's ever told you that they were offended. Did anybody there ever tell you that they were offended, bothered, miffed, uncomfortable, edgy, nauseous over the press conference that you had?
Day one, yes. I had a conversation with one of the vice presidents, right? And they were, just like you did, it was about being uncomfortable with having their name associated to everything.
Well, tough bananas.
And that's what exactly I said, out of all due respect, that I have a job
You're
to do.
You're an international company.
Right. And we've walked that line and respected that. So at this point here, I think it is water under the bridge for us. And it's about how do we keep them here in Pawtucket, and what do? We need to understand their needs, right? Commerce. I talk to Stefan now at least once a week, right, on this issue.
Stefan Pryor, the Secretary of Commerce in Rhode Island, yes.
So we have a very honest conversation weekly to see where we're at. We've made presentation. Again, the
What's
governor...
What's the timeline? Anybody telling you?
No. The governor has the lead on this one through Commerce.
Again, her issue is the state. She actually says Pawtucket with disdain. I mean, do you hear that? I said Pawtucket, as if it's like... I hope you navigate through this whole thing. I think the development that you guys are doing in the core is terrific. I have to ask you real quick, I only got 90 seconds here, on the Paw Sox replacement theory. All those 6 presentations that came as a request for proposal response cracked me up, man. They're all going to use a formula similar to that which the Paw Sox had. This is like throwing your spouse away, finding a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and finding out that they come with the same issues. Except, you know what? Your spouse was great, and now he or she's dating somebody else, and you're like,
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. And they go, you know what? See ya. It's disgusting. Those proposals are all what? Legit?
So, yeah, there are really some that are really legitimate. I have not dove into what the requirements are, requests. The way we set it up is there's analysis going on through Commerce, Pawtucket, Commerce, RI. They're putting questions back out to them.
We're not getting single-A baseball here. No one's going to go, Don.
It depends. It depends on the cost.
And they got to rebuild the stadium.
That's where it comes down to. It's where the rubber meets the road is about the financing.
And the pro forma doesn't work out.
It's all about the financing. You're absolutely right. So you're right. We're back to the numbers.
And soccer?
Talking about a future.
Fat chance. You play any soccer?
No.
Yeah,
Does it look like I do any sports, Dan?
You look good, though.
Thanks.
Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
Don Grebien, Mayor of Pawtucket. Final word next. We have some interesting financial issues with the schools in Coventry, and normally I wouldn't focus on one school system's woes, but there's some systemic issues that are involved there, because some of the problems that we have that pop up in a little town here and there in Rhode Island mean a warning signal for others. Tim Duffy from the School Committee Association here in Rhode Island, the executive director, will join us tomorrow to talk about some key educational issues. I look forward to having you watch that conversation. In the meantime, give me a ring on the radio, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.